I remember the day my parents bought their first home. I was 12 years old and my little sister Natalie was only 9. Dad lifted her onto his shoulders so she could touch the doorframe, and Mom cried happy tears on the front porch. That house was their lifelong dream. 20 years later, I became the one keeping that dream alive. For 5 straight years, I paid their mortgage without a single complaint. I thought family meant everything, until I realized that in my parents' eyes, family did not include me. Before I continue, let me know where you are watching from today. And if you believe in fairness within families, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. This story will make you rethink what the word sacrifice truly means. My name is Marcus. I am 32 years old, and I work as a software engineer at a tech company in Seattle. I built my career from nothing, working 3 jobs simultaneously while earning my degree on a scholarship. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college, and I carried that accomplishment with quiet pride. My family comes from a middle-class neighborhood on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon. Dad spent 35 years as an electrician, climbing ladders and pulling wires, until his knees gave out. Mom worked part-time as a nurse at the local clinic, always smelling of hand sanitizer and compassion when she came home. They were not wealthy people, but they were proud people. That house represented everything they had worked for. Then there was Natalie, my younger sister by 3 years. From the moment she was born, she was the princess of our household. Her bedroom was painted pink with butterfly decals on the walls. She got piano lessons, dance classes, and a car for her 16th birthday. I got a handshake and a reminder to keep my grades up, but I never resented her for it. I told myself that little sisters needed more protection, more nurturing. I was the big brother. My job was to provide, not to compete. 5 years ago, everything changed. I was 27, finally stable in my career, finally thinking about buying my own place, and maybe proposing to my girlfriend at the time. Then my phone rang on a Tuesday evening. It was Dad, and his voice was shaking in a way I had never heard before. The electrical company had laid off 200 workers. Dad was 58 years old, and suddenly he was unemployed with no prospects. Mom had just undergone knee replacement surgery and could not work for at least 6 months. They had fallen behind on their mortgage payments. 3 months behind. The bank had sent a foreclosure warning letter. I can still hear Dad's voice breaking through the phone. He said, "Son, I do not know what to do. This house is everything your mother and I have. We cannot lose it. Please, if there is anything you can do." I did not hesitate, not for 1 second. I told him, "Dad, do not worry about it. I will take care of everything." Starting that month, I began sending $2,300 home every single month. That was nearly half of my take-home pay after taxes. I calculated it precisely because I wanted to make sure they would never miss another payment. To make this work, I had to make sacrifices. I postponed buying my own home. I pushed back my plans to propose to Jennifer, my girlfriend of 2 years. I stayed in my cramped 1-bedroom apartment with the leaky faucet and the neighbor who played loud music until 2 in the morning. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself that family comes first. 5 years, 60 months, $138,000. I remember every single number because I kept a spreadsheet. Every month I would update it and watch the total climb higher. Every month I would remind myself that I was doing the right thing. During those 5 years, I did not take vacations. I did not buy a new car even when my old Honda started making concerning noises. I ate cheap meals and skipped nights out with friends. My entire existence revolved around work and sending money home. Jennifer left me after 2 years. She sat me down one evening and said, "Marcus, I love you, but you have no ambition. You are content to live in this tiny apartment forever. You never want to build a future with me." I could not tell her the truth. I could not explain that every spare dollar I had was going to my parents. I did not want anyone to see them as a burden. So I just let her go. After Jennifer left, I buried myself even deeper in work. I got promoted twice, I earned bonuses that went straight to Portland. And every month without fail, I received the same text message from Mom. It always said the same thing. Money received. Thank you. No phone calls. No questions about my life. No invitations to come home for dinner. Just those 4 words. Meanwhile, Natalie was living her best life. She graduated from college with a degree in communications, paid for entirely by our parents. She traveled through Europe for 2 months, posting pictures of herself in front of the Eiffel Tower and the Colosseum. She dated a string of successful men until she finally landed Derek, a corporate lawyer with slicked back hair and a firm handshake. I met him once at Thanksgiving, and he spent the entire dinner talking about his golf handicap. I told myself none of it bothered me. Natalie deserved to be happy. She was my little sister. I was the big brother. My job was to carry the weight so she could fly. The call came on a bright spring morning. Mom's voice was electric with excitement, practically vibrating through the phone. She said, "Marcus, you will never believe it. Natalie is getting married. Derek proposed last night with a 2-carat diamond. The wedding is planned for August." I congratulated her sincerely. I asked about the venue, the date, whether they needed any help with expenses. Mom brushed off my offer with a light laugh. She said, "Oh no, sweetheart. Your father and I have something very special planned for Natalie. Do not worry about a thing." I did not press for details. I assumed they had managed to save some money, maybe from the reduced mortgage payments, or from Mom going back to work part-time. It did not occur to me to be suspicious. These were my parents. They would never betray me. 2 weeks before the wedding, I received an invitation to a family dinner at the house. Not a casual request, but a formal invitation printed on cream-colored cardstock. Mom called to emphasize how important it was that I attend. She said it was a special announcement, something that would change everything. I drove down from Seattle on a Friday evening, the summer sun stretching the shadows across the highway. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Derek's BMW parked next to Natalie's white SUV. The house looked freshly painted, the lawn perfectly manicured. For a moment, I felt proud. My money had kept this place standing. Dinner was elaborate. Mom had prepared her famous pot roast with all the fixings. Dad opened a bottle of wine that had been collecting dust in the basement for 15 years. Natalie glowed in a designer dress, flashing her engagement ring at every opportunity. Derek made small talk about the housing market and investment strategies. After dessert, Dad stood up from the table. He was holding a large manila envelope, and his hands were trembling slightly. He cleared his throat and said, "Everyone, your mother and I have an announcement to make. We have been thinking long and hard about how to celebrate Natalie's wedding, and we have decided on something truly special." He opened the envelope and pulled out a stack of legal documents. I recognized them immediately. The deed to the house, the property transfer papers. Dad continued, his voice thick with emotion. "We have decided to give this house to Natalie and Derek as a wedding present. This home has been our dream for 20 years, and now we want to pass that dream on to our daughter and her new husband." Natalie screamed with joy. She jumped up from her chair and threw her arms around both parents, tears streaming down her face. Derek shook Dad's hand firmly, his lawyer eyes already calculating the property value. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, smiling beatifically. And I sat there, frozen, my fork still in my hand, feeling like someone had just punched me in the chest. The house. The house I had been paying for. 5 years. $138,000. They were giving it away like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. I forced myself to stay calm. I set down my fork carefully and asked in a voice that did not sound like my own. "Mom, Dad, what about the money I have been sending for the past 5 years? What happens to that?" The table went silent. Natalie stopped mid-celebration and stared at me like I had just said something obscene. Derek raised an eyebrow, clearly confused. Mom and Dad exchanged a glance that I could not interpret. Dad spoke first. His tone was dismissive, almost annoyed. He said, "Marcus, that money was to help us out. It was not a purchase. You were not buying the house. You were helping your family during a difficult time. We raised you for over 20 years. Helping us back is just what family does." I opened my mouth to respond, but Natalie cut me off. Her voice was sharp, condescending. She said, "Marcus, seriously, you are going to make this about money. On my special night, you earn plenty at your fancy tech job. You do not need this house. Derek and I are starting a family. We need the space." Mom nodded in agreement. She said, "Your sister is right, sweetheart. You are single. What would you do with a house this big? Natalie needs it more than you do." I looked around the table, searching for an ally. Dad was staring at his plate, refusing to meet my eyes. Mom was looking at me with disappointment, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. Natalie was holding Derek's hand, a small smile playing on her lips. And Derek was watching me with the detached interest of a scientist observing a lab rat. I stood up slowly. I placed my napkin on the table with careful precision. I said I understand, and then I walked out the door. I drove back to Seattle that night. 4 hours on dark highways, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I did not cry. I did not scream. I just felt empty, like someone had reached inside my chest and scooped out everything that made me who I was. 20 years of memories. 20 years of believing that I mattered to these people. Gone in one evening. Erased by a stack of legal documents and a 2-carat engagement ring. I did not attend Natalie's wedding. I sent an expensive gift and a brief card that said, "Congratulations and best wishes." I did not explain why I was not coming. I did not owe them an explanation. Mom called me 3 times the week of the wedding. Each voicemail was angrier than the last. She said I was embarrassing the family. She said relatives were asking questions. She said I was being petty and childish, and that I would regret this for the rest of my life. I deleted every message without responding. After the wedding, I stopped sending money home. Just like that. No announcement, no dramatic confrontation. I simply stopped the automatic transfer and redirected those funds into my own savings account. Nobody in my family noticed. Or if they did, nobody said anything. That silence told me everything I needed to know about how much my contributions had really meant to them. With the extra money, I started rebuilding my life. I got promoted again at work, this time to a senior position with a significant raise. I started going to therapy to work through the anger and grief that I had been suppressing for years. And I bought myself a vacation house on the Oregon coast, a small but beautiful cottage with ocean views and a wraparound porch. It was my reward to myself for 5 years of sacrifice. My proof that I could build something of my own. 2 months after the wedding, my phone rang. It was Dad, and his voice had that artificially cheerful tone that I had learned to distrust. He said, "Marcus, son, how have you been? Your mother and I want to talk to you about something." I listened as he explained the situation. Natalie and Derek had decided to renovate the house. Major structural work, new kitchen, expanded master bedroom. Very expensive. During the construction, which was expected to take about 6 months, they needed somewhere to stay. Dad said, "We heard you bought that vacation place on the coast. Beautiful spot. Your mother and I were thinking that maybe the whole family could stay there while Natalie's house is being fixed up. Like a big family vacation. Would that not be nice?" I let the silence stretch out. Then I said, "Let me make sure I understand. You want me to let you, Mom, Natalie, and Derek live in my vacation house for 6 months while Natalie renovates the house that you gave her, the house that I paid for?" Dad's cheerfulness faltered. He said, "Well, when you put it that way, it sounds harsh. But yes, that is what we are asking. You are family, Marcus. This is what family does." I felt the old anger rising in my chest, but it was different now. Colder, more controlled. I said, "No, I am not going to do that." Another long silence, then Dad's voice suddenly hard. He said, "What did you say?" I repeated myself clearly. I said, "No, Dad. That house is mine. I worked for it. I paid for it with my own money. I am not going to let anyone live there for 6 months, family or not. Dad exploded. He started yelling about how ungrateful I was, how selfish, how he and Mom had sacrificed everything to raise me. He said I owed them. He said I was no son of his if I could not help my own family in their time of need. I stayed calm. I said, Dad, I already helped. $138,000 over 5 years. I think I've done my part. He hung up on me. The aftermath was immediate and vicious. My phone blew up with messages from Mom, from Natalie, from Derek, even from aunts and uncles I had not spoken to in years. They called me selfish. They called me heartless. They said I was destroying the family over petty jealousy. Natalie's message was particularly cruel. She wrote, "You have always been jealous of me, Marcus. Ever since we were kids. You cannot stand to see me happy. You are a sad, lonely man, and you will die alone." I read each message once, then blocked every number. I was done. 3 weeks passed in silence. I started sleeping better. I started enjoying my weekends again. I was beginning to feel like myself for the first time in years. Then at 11:15 on a Thursday night, my phone rang. Unknown number from Lincoln County, Oregon. A deep male voice said, "Good evening. Am I speaking with Marcus Thompson?" I confirmed my identity, my heart suddenly racing. The voice continued. He said, "This is Sergeant Williams with the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office. Sir, we received a call from a neighbor about your property on Coastal View Drive. Someone was attempting to break in. When we arrived on scene, we found 2 older individuals and a younger couple. They claim to be your family and say they have permission to be there." I closed my eyes. Of course they would try this. Sergeant Williams asked, "Sir, can you confirm whether you gave these people permission to access your property?" I said, "No, Sergeant. I did not give them permission. They do not have any right to be there." I could hear voices in the background, through the phone. Mom crying, Dad shouting something about ungrateful children, Natalie screaming that I was a monster. Sergeant Williams asked, "Do you want to press charges for trespassing, sir?" I thought about it. For a long moment, I seriously considered saying yes. Let them spend a night in jail. Let them experience real consequences for once in their lives. But then I thought about Dad's heart condition, the one he pretended he did not have. I thought about Mom's arthritis and how hard it was for her to get around. I thought about how much I had already lost and how pressing charges would not give any of it back. I said, "No charges, Sergeant. But please make sure they leave the property immediately and understand that they are not welcome back. If they return, I will press charges." He said he understood. Through the phone, I heard him relay my message. I heard Natalie screaming that I would pay for this. I heard Mom sobbing that she could not believe her own son would do this to her. I heard Dad threatening to never speak to me again. I hung up and sat in the darkness of my apartment for a long time. The first few months after that night were harder than I expected. Even though I knew I had done the right thing, the guilt gnawed at me constantly. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, wondering if I should have handled it differently, wondering if I was really the monster they said I was. I increased my therapy sessions to twice a week. Dr. Simmons, my therapist, was a patient woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense approach. She helped me see things clearly for the first time. She said, "Marcus, you gave your family $138,000 and 5 years of your life. You sacrificed your relationship, your savings, your dreams. And when you finally said no, when you finally established a boundary, they called you selfish. That is not love. That is exploitation. You are not a monster for protecting yourself. You are finally being healthy." Slowly, I started to believe her. I poured myself into work and earned another promotion. I started dating again carefully, this time looking for someone who valued me for who I was rather than what I could provide. I spent weekends at my beach house watching the sunset from my porch, feeling the salt wind on my face. I made friends with my neighbors there, an older couple named Harold and Margaret. who had been married for 43 years. They treated me like a son, inviting me over for Sunday dinners and teaching me how to fish off the rocky shore. Margaret would pat my hand and tell me I was a good man. Harold would clap me on the shoulder and say I reminded him of himself when he was young. For the first time in years, I felt like I had a family again, a chosen family, one that actually cared about me. Through the grapevine, I heard what happened to my biological family. The renovation costs spiraled out of control. Derek, it turned out, had made some bad investments and was deep in debt. He and Natalie had to sell the house, the one my parents had given them, just to stay afloat. My parents moved into a small rented apartment across town. I did not feel victorious when I heard the news. I did not feel vindicated. I just felt sad. Sad that it had come to this. Sad that they had destroyed our family over greed and favoritism. A year after the incident, I received a handwritten letter from Mom. Her handwriting was shaky, the paper spotted with what might have been tears. She did not apologize. She did not acknowledge anything she had done wrong. She just said that Dad needed heart surgery and asked if I could help with the medical bills. I read that letter a dozen times. I thought about all the years I had spent trying to be a good son. I thought about the empty text messages and the missed holidays and the way they had erased my contributions like they meant nothing. Then I wrote a check for the full amount of the surgery. I put it in an envelope with a short note that said, "This is the last time. Please do not contact me again." I never heard back from them. And strangely, I was okay with that. Looking back now, I understand something that took me 32 years to learn. Family is not just about blood. Family is about how people treat you. Family is about mutual respect and leave and support. And sometimes the people who share your DNA are the ones least capable of giving you those things. I do not hate my parents. I do not hate Natalie. Hate takes energy, and I have better things to spend my energy on. I simply accept that they are who they are and that I deserve better than what they were willing to give me. The most important lesson I learned is that boundaries are not selfish. Boundaries are necessary. Saying no to people who exploit you is not cruelty. It is self-respect. And sometimes walking away from toxic relationships is the bravest thing you can do. If you are watching this and you recognize yourself in my story, if you are the one always giving and never receiving, I want you to know something. You deserve better. You deserve to be valued for who you are, not just what you can provide. You deserve a family that celebrates you, not one that erases you. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with your own family? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and I think sharing our experiences helps all of us feel less alone. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button to help more people find this video. Subscribe to this channel for more real stories about family betrayal and redemption. And share this video with someone who might need to hear it today. Sometimes knowing that someone else has been through the same struggle is exactly what we need. Thank you for watching and for being part of this community. I wish you the strength to protect your peace and the wisdom to know your worth. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.